Good evening, viewers. Thank you for tuning in to Gender Dignity, Unique and Equal. I'm your host, Matthew Francis, and tonight I put together a lovely panel as we are going to address issues of aging as relevant to the LGBT community. Some of you may know that Maine is the oldest state in the country, and what I mean by that is that we have the largest elderly population. It's accelerated and we need to address it. There's lots of things going on. But part of the purpose of this panel tonight is to talk specifically about the issues that face LGBT folks in particular. There's some real fears that we have, and we're going to take some time to address that today. And I'm not going to go into this too much. We're gonna start off with our introductions as we always do, and then we'll launch into our questions. And I have a feeling it'll be a really exciting night. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you, your guests, for being here tonight. Always my first question that I like to ask is if you would mind just introducing yourself to the viewers in language that feels safe to you. Just tell them a bit about yourself, and would you include your transition or coming out story, however you prefer to see that. Michael, I hope you don't mind, we'll start with you.
I'm Michael Gray Jordan. I have been in Portland 6 years. I came here from 22 years in Minneapolis, St. Paul. I was born in New Jersey, raised in Detroit, Michigan. Have lived also in Boston, upstate New York, Los Angeles, and Seattle.
Wow.
I moved around a lot. I was a musical theater actor up through 1980, and between 82 and 88 I did little pieces for friends, even though I was not pursuing acting work anymore. If they needed a body or a voice, they knew I was a quick study, so
nice.
they would contact me. And then in 88 I moved to Minnesota and have not done any acting for that period of time. Coming out story, I'm retired. I retired from 22 years at the University of Minnesota in the admissions office. Coming out story, this is a hard one for me because I'm not sure I was ever in.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. What comes up for me when I think of coming out was having a long conversation with my mother, January 1st, 1999. I had been out with a friend, and when I got in the next morning, sometime after midnight, New Year's Eve, my mother was waiting up for me and asked me point blank, "Are you gay?"
Oh, okay.
Now, we had a talk that must have gone on for 2 hours, maybe longer. I will always love her and send her blessings for how open and supportive she was. I have heard so many stories about people that were traumatized by dealing with rejected and traumatized, and I didn't realize how special it was the way she handled that. I am not clear after all this time. I was how old would I have been? I was 20 when this
So, I
occurred.
mean, no offense, but that was really quite a long time ago, and it
Yes.
wasn't accepted.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, it wasn't.
Yeah, 1969
Oh, my
specifically.
goodness. And it was
Yeah.
still considered a mental illness at that time.
Is that right?
That's true,
Yeah.
yes.
I knew that was true at one time. I don't know when it changed.
1973.
Oh, you're good with dates.
Yes. Yeah.
That's great. I'm horrible with dates. My sister's very good with dates. She could be a historian. I don't know how she and I ended up so differently when it comes to dates. So I don't know. I don't know that beyond that I have a coming out story. I'm trying to think what I want to add to that, if anything. Is there anything specifically that you would like to
I kind
know
of am
about, or
curious,
things
or-
that you may know that you might want me to?
Is
to
your family,
discuss.
besides you, is your family in general supportive?
Yes, yes. When my father died in 71, he's been gone a long time, and he and I never dealt with it.
Okay.
Yeah, he and I never dealt with it. But yes, my sister, if you'll pardon me putting it this way, if you're a gay hostile, she wants to kick your ass.
Okay.
She would hate it that I said that on camera, but she'll forgive me. So yes, in general, yeah, my family has been wonderful. And I love them for it.
Oh,
Yeah.
you're blessed.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely
Yes.
blessed. Absolutely blessed.
I guess I'm thinking, in that year, that had to be hard. So you had to have a good family for that.
Yes, 69. When was Stonewall?
That I don't.
69.
It was that year, wasn't it? Yes, after this conversation with my mother, because it happened in June.
Yeah.
Yes.
Last Sunday of the month.
So 5 months before that, my mother's asking me if I'm gay. She
Yeah.
was way ahead of her time.
Yeah, I was gonna say pretty culturally aware.
Yeah.
How long did you know? What age were you?
You know, I don't know when I had the language for it,
Okay.
but I've always known.
Okay.
This idea that it's something we pick at a certain age is so
Erroneous,
incorrect.
yes.
Yeah, erroneous, incorrect. I'm trying to think of nice words to describe it, because I think I always knew. When I was 12 or 13, I found a book by Evelyn Millis Duval, Facts of Life and Love for Teenagers.
Oh,
I think they still publish this book.
okay.
And it dealt with homosexuality in maybe 2 paragraphs. And considering when it was published, I think it goes back to the 50s, it was pretty good.
That's pretty progressive.
However, it concluded this section on homosexuality by saying overt forms are not to be actively sought. And I thought, what did I just read? And even as a 12-year-old, I thought, no, I don't agree with that. So, Evelyn Millis Duval, M-I-L-L-I-S Millis Duval, Facts of Life and Love for Teenagers. And thank God it was included.
Yes, at least.
But before that, I don't think I had language, in terms of what I was potentially, or the idea of coming out and not coming out or being in a closet. Yeah, I'm not sure I was ever in a closet.
That's great.
Yeah, and unique also once more. Yeah, I appreciate the fact that my mother was so open. Very, very lovely thing for her to do.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, an aside question is, I don't suppose you're acting now, huh?
Have not.
No?
Yeah. Had one audition experience in my 22 years in Minnesota.
Okay.
In terms of high school, I was in one of those FAME programs in high school, and then a Bachelor of Fine Arts program in theater, local theater in Detroit, and then 11 years in Los Angeles. This audition experience in Minnesota was the most amazing audition experience I've ever had. They were doing it by appointment. Usually cattle calls are several hundred people hoping for 10 seconds to impress the casting people. And I was with them for about 90 minutes, just me and the casting people.
Wow.
Yeah, so remarkable. And when I left, I said, I want to thank you so much. This has been an amazing audition. They were confused as to why I was thanking them. I said, well, you know what cattle calls are normally like. This is so much more dignified, and I really felt I had an opportunity to show them what I, had to offer in terms of talent.
Nice.
Yeah, Park Square Theater in St. Paul, Minnesota. Give them credit.
Thank you, Mike.
Yeah, thanks, Matthew.
Coach Kula, would you mind telling viewers a bit about yourself?
Let's see. I've moved around a bit too. I'm relatively new to Maine. I moved here in August of 2012 from Brooklyn, New York.
Okay.
We were in New York City area, Queens, and then Brooklyn for about 5 years. Before that, I lived in Western Massachusetts,
Okay.
East Hampton, and before that, Albany. But I grew up outside of Buffalo, New York, in a little town called Tonawanda,
Okay.
between Buffalo and Niagara Falls. So, so I've moved around quite a bit myself.
Okay.
Some for college, some for other reasons.
Okay. Would you mind talking a bit about your coming out story or your transition story?
Sure, well, the interesting thing is I probably came out and then had to come out again as trans, so it was like a 2-part story.
Sure, please, take your time.
Probably in high school I knew. Backing up to that, actually I probably knew I was transgender when I was earlier. When I was about 12 or 13, I approached my mother and I said, I think I have the wrong body.
Did you?
I did.
Wow.
That didn't go over well. She's an evangelical Christian.
Oh, boy.
And so she said, no.
How was she trying
you're
to
a
help
girl.
you? Okay, yep.
You know, and So I pestered her and hounded her for about a year. And finally, she just looked at me and said, listen, I'm not going to tell you this again. God does not make mistakes. You are a girl.
Okay.
And so I went, okay. And I said, all right. Unfortunately, I dealt with it in unhealthy ways. Alcohol,
please, yeah.
drugs, smoking
And that's
weed.
really common in the trans community, unfortunately, but.
Yep. And then, so that became an issue. And I was in and out of treatment. I'm proud to say I have about 15 and a half years clean and sober as of today.
Congratulations.
Wow, great.
God willing. That'll continue. And I went to college, well, through treatment. One of the educational coordinators said, you're one of the few people in this treatment facility that has a high school diploma. You know, are you interested in college? Not really, but she kind of got me interested in it, and I took some like community college classes and then transferred into a four-year college, eventually Russell Sage College, which is an all-women's college.
Oh, okay. How was that? Was you still struggling at this point? Well, you must have been, but.
At this point, I think I had pushed it away because it was like, I'm not going to go there. And there's still, that was probably in the early 70s when I first approached my mom. But there wasn't a lot of talk about trans issues. So
So you came out first as a
I
lesbian?
came out as a lesbian.
Okay,
And then I found the butch femme community,
okay.
who were in New York City particularly, they were very instrumental in me feeling much more comfortable with who I was.
Okay.
And probably the most accepting community was the butch femme community
Okay.
ever.
In your own words, Coach, if you don't mind, I'm curious if you might even explain to viewers what, in your mind, would be the difference between being a lesbian and being a trans guy.
Well, if you're a lesbian, you're female identified.
Right.
A woman who loves a woman. Transgender is, I am a male. I feel that is my core, my essence, and my soul. Since it was not accepted, and since I was kind of shunned for it by my mom, I just figured I'd go a different way. So I did come out to my mother probably when I was 25.
Okay.
She knew, and had asked me, I said, I have something to tell you. And she said, oh, are you going to tell me you have a different lifestyle?
Okay.
To which, ironically, it was funny, we got disconnected somehow when she called back. And she said, please tell me you don't have a different lifestyle. And I said, well, actually, I do, Mom. You know,
How was she accepting that, as opposed to, you saying that I'm in the wrong body?
I don't think she was thrilled with that either,
Right.
but was more accepting of it.
Okay, so that was less of an evil, so to speak.
Yeah. Although we went through a few rounds, time and again. And when I would call her, she would quote Bible verses and tell me I was going to hell. To which I would say, okay, Mom, if you start talking about me going to hell and reading Bible verses, I will hang up the phone.
Okay.
Just so you know.
Set a boundary.
Yep. And I had to hang up on her a few times.
Okay.
Okay, Mom, I'm hanging up the phone now. Over time, she did evolve to the point where she accepted my being a lesbian.
Okay.
I was struggling myself then, because several people said, are you trans? And I went, no, I'm butch.
Gotcha.
So, because I just didn't know. And it wasn't until I came to Maine, I think, where I felt safe enough doing that. Ironically, my mother, who accepted me as a lesbian, she, unfortunately, God rest her, God, I love her, I rest her soul. She's deceased now, but, and I had a really kind of very tight bond with her. While she was sick, I was visiting, and I was packing up my stuff to go, and she looked at my father, and she said, who's that guy over there? And my father looked, and he said, what? Who's that guy over there? And he said, oh, that's your daughter. And she just looked really confused. I kind of smiled to myself, like, well, maybe she finally saw me.
Right. Saw your essence.
Yeah.
Your spirit. Can you tell the viewers what you're a coach of?
Yeah, I am an assistant coach, strength and conditioning coach, and I help out with the offensive line and defensive line of a women's semi-professional team, the Maine Mayhem. We just returned from North Carolina,
That's right.
where we were playing in what was called the Affiliate Bowl, and we won that game 48-0. So we are the division's champions. And we are the champions of our division.
Okay.
That was very
wow.
exciting.
May I ask, do the women you coach, do they know you're trans?
No,
No, they don't. Okay. So you're living partly. Can you explain how that feels a bit? Some of that. Or?
it's awkward.
Okay.
I don't always like it. And as a matter of fact, there was an issue at one of the games where one of the teams we played had a male to female transgender playing, and it became an issue.
Okay.
And some really offensive comments were made. Not by my head coach, but, so that was like hard to listen to. And I just said, please, I would prefer that you didn't use those kind of comments
Sure.
in my presence. And so it's hard. It's hard, like, knowing this is who I am,
And sometimes not being able to.
not being able to. And I'm a teacher. That gets, a little dicey sometimes.
Sure.
And as much as a society likes to say that it's accepting of LGBT, I don't really always believe that.
Right. Well, they're enormous safety issues, Coach. Yes,
Yeah.
that's partly why this program was started. So, thank you. And Antoinette, I found out something I didn't know about you, and that is that you were on the Jerry Springer Show.
Yeah.
You're kind of an icon around town, in my opinion.
Yeah.
A lot of people do know you.
Yeah.
So would you tell viewers a bit about yourself?
Okay, well, I'm a child of the 30s, believe it or not. I was a 50s era vet under Eisenhower. I didn't complete high school. My parents moved around an awful lot. My father was an eclectic person involved in theater, book writing, directing. Even though he was blind in one eye, he directed films. He acted in stock theater, and when he was a young person, he was in college at 14. I wasn't really into college until my mid-30s. So when my family was being raised. So Jerry Springer Show, okay, a couple of gay friends of mine, one who was living with me, he was a homeless gay man, and another friend, we all knew each other very well. So I won't mention names, but everything, but we all finally agreed on going out to Chicago to the Jerry Springer Show, and you had to have a story. So our story was that I was having an affair with, as a transgender woman, having an affair, I was out by then, having an affair with my roommate's lover. Okay, so that was our cover story on the Jerry Springer Show. And they coached us for 6 hours before we went out. So by the time we got out on stage, and we were each coached individually, we were totally cool with who we were. So, and I'd had acting experience like yourself. So it was really natural for me. My biggest challenge was physical, moving around naturally on stage after a hip replacement. So, and all right, Jerry Springer Show was where I learned to accept myself as a man who lives as a woman. I never rejected my male, and that makes it totally easy for me to get around in places with males, like locker rooms, things like that. And I'm totally fearless. So if people meet me, they know that I'm cool with myself, and I don't take any BS from anybody. So I'm very non-aggressive with people. If they, if they're nasty with me, I just back off. So I don't go looking for fights, and rather disarm a situation with my mouth than my fists. Although I was in the service and I can take care of myself, but that's really a last resort.
How old were you when you knew about that you were trans, and how did that look?
Well, before coming out as trans, I knew at 14 that I was bisexual.
Okay.
That was my big discovery. In fact, I got my mother excited one day, and when I was around 14, wearing her stockings. So, and I was very precocious teenager. I'd read a magazine instead of girly magazines under the covers. I was reading Sexology, so like all the technical stuff and everything. So, my parents had gay friends, and they allowed me without a whimper to go out with a boyfriend for 2 weeks. He was a merchant marine, and spend 2 weeks with him when I was 14. So we would take a rented car and go riding up and down the smoky Blue Ridge Mountains and just having a wonderful time. So we didn't have the emphasis wasn't on sex, it was friendship. So he was like an older brother. I was an only child. So I was always comfortable with myself as a bisexual person, and found other people with same-sex relationships. I was comfortable around them, and they were automatically comfortable around me. Now, probably how I came out, you come out to yourself first before you come out with anybody else. But as a child, I would play with girls as heartily as I would play with boys. So I always had lots of little girlfriends and great boyfriends, and growing up in school, and so I went to a boys' school. I might have gotten teased a little bit there, but it never fazed me. So I took a bunch of free weights to school with me, make sure I was bulked up enough to look the part of being a tough boy.
Right. So, okay.
And I grew up on the streets of New York, so I learned how to street fight. So I pretty much never had a problem. My son was kind of a pretty boy, and he had problems. Even though he was a black belt karate, he had to prove himself in Portland High to the point where he finally left school. And I encouraged him to leave and to do what he had to do to preserve his own dignity. So, and that's my advice to young people: don't put up with violence and so forth. It's not worth it to live in terror. Or, I've done street fighting in school. I was challenged when I was in like 6th, 7th grade. So my advice to people, young people, especially growing up, is be yourself. Try to respect others, and to and not get yourself into situations that are dangerous.
Okay. Can I ask how old? I'm gonna
Yeah.
draw this in. Can I ask how old it was when you came out as a trans woman?
About 22 years ago, I decided that it was time for me to let my female out and to air my female side, and I changed my name from William Anthony Pazay to Anthony Wilhelmina Pazay. I took my father's initials, A.W. Pazay. And I officially changed my name. I was going to school in Bangor Seminary at the time, and I was also working at the YW. They had problems with me at the YW when I started wearing a little makeup and, just a minor bit. I mean, I used to dress basically the way I'm dressed now in the Y, a short sleeve shirt and short pants, but I occasionally used a little makeup and maybe painted my nails or something like that. And so we had to educate the director and the staff at the Y.
That's a Christian facility.
Right, of
Yes.
what a trans person is. And we had a trans woman living there in stealth who was scared to death that I was going to out her.
Okay.
Yeah, and I never did, of course. I was always respectful of people. But we did educate them, and there was a lesbian on the board, the head of the board, and she said, well, if we make it difficult for Antoinette, I said, what kind of a place is this? Where is she going to find work? And I worked there for 17 years. Mm-hmm. So, but I did come out there, so that was part of my coming out as Antoinette.
Nice.
Yeah.
Thank you, Antoinette. And now I'm going to transition, now that the viewers have had a chance to get to know my guests. And we're going to go back to the aging issue, which is the purpose of this program. And we're going to start again with you, Michael, if you don't mind. What's some of the barriers that you are afraid of as you age Obviously, just looking, I mean, we know that you are gay, we know you're a person of color, and so I would love it if you would speak candidly about any fears that you have, about perhaps entering a facility, anything that you want to just address.
I have a fear of living beyond my ability to take care of myself.
Sure.
Yeah, I don't know if we live in the kind of culture where it's safe to assume that others would take care of me if that occurred.
Okay.
Yeah, there are ways. I live actually most of my life, all of my life so far, with depression and sleep deprivation.
Okay.
I'm in treatment for both of them, but neither treatment is especially effective.
Gotcha.
So there are ways in which I have trouble now taking care of myself on a day-to-day basis. My apartment always needs attention, and sometimes even taking care of my person is difficult.
Okay.
But I don't want this to sound morbid, but if I had my choice, I would rather die, than to be in a position where I cannot take care of myself. I think that might sound odd
No, I don't think
to
it
some
does,
people,
sure.
but I have
Can I ask you to elaborate?
certainly.
Is this just, in my opinion, that we all probably share some of that fear, you know, because we're really into our rugged individualism. Are there any additional fears, you know, being mentally ill, like maybe not being with it enough to know if
Yes.
you're being, okay,
Yes.
let's get
Yeah.
into that.
Yeah. Well, for me, that's a big part of it. I mean, literally lifelong. I'm certain as a child, I was already living with depression, was probably born with it.
Okay.
My last 6 years have been disabling depression. I don't know what's happened, but the medication seemed to have stopped working. I've been finding medication very helpful since I was a teenager. I think
So
I
you've
was
been
on
on
my
it
first.
that long?
Yes, yes, different ones at different points in my life, but just for the last 6 years or so, it seems like none of them help.
Okay.
And I have. I was scheduled once for electroconvulsive therapy. A family member freaked out, asked me not to do it, and I got freaked out again based on her reaction.
Sure.
So canceled it, and I don't know whether or not I will reschedule. I hope I have the name of this correct. There's something called magnetic transcranial.
Yep.
Do you know about this magnetic transcranial stimulation, TMS?
Yep.
And I had an intake interview with them here in Portland,
Okay.
and they said they thought I would be a good candidate for transcranial, it's a mouthful to me, transcranial magnetic stimulation. But there is only one insurance company that they accept.
Oh, okay.
So insurance issues come up a lot
Sure.
as I've gotten older, and I'm sure I'm not alone in that regard. But the insurance company that they will accept is an insurance that I can't afford.
Okay. So that's
So-
a concrete barrier, poverty.
It is a concrete barrier.
Yep. So really, you're on the LGBT,
Yes,
you're a person of color,
yes,
mental illness,
yes.
poverty,
Yeah.
in this climate,
Yeah.
and you're aging.
I'm reluctant to say poverty, but yes, based on official figures, I probably live below the poverty line.
And right
Yeah.
now, as you struggle at times, are there resources? Does anyone come in to assist you in any way, or?
No.
So
no.
you're on your.
I have to acknowledge that I haven't really looked into that.
Okay, well, probably your depression keeps that from.
Yeah, which is a part of the barrier or another barrier. Yeah, I am currently preparing for an inspection. I live in a subsidized building, and once a year we have inspections where they're trying to make sure that our homes are clean and safe.
Sure.
And I struggle with issues of cleanliness and safety at home. So I kind of lost my train of thought as to where I was going with that. It had something to do with what you just asked me.
Talking about the different
sorry.
barriers
Yeah.
and accessing resources.
Yeah, accessing resources. There is perhaps more available that I'm unaware of.
Okay.
I used to be very resourceful as a younger person. I seem to have kind of lost the resourcefulness as I've gotten older.
Well, depression can do that as well, though, can't it?
Yes.
We know that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, let's be honest, we're in 2016.
Yes.
We're having rioting, we're having all sorts of issues. People of color, in my mind, are really being targeted right now. Yeah. How do you feel
So
about your
brutally.
safety?
Well, I, based on the incidents a couple weeks ago that I'm calling police executions, have started to wear my driver's license around my neck on a lanyard,
So that you don't have to pull it out of your pocket.
so that I don't have to use my hands if I'm asked for my ID. I took it off because I was afraid it would interfere with the microphone. But I will be doing this from now on. The idea of being asked, show me your ID, then shooting you when you reach for it is perplexing, it's brutal, it's evil. I don't fully understand how you can show ID without reaching for it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but I am wearing this around my neck now, and probably will continue to do so until I feel that it's safe to, to keep it in a wallet or in a pocket or somewhere.
And I'm going to go even further. I can't imagine you feeling terribly safe, as you're not a young man anymore.
No.
And I know when I was going through cancer, for example, I felt very vulnerable because I knew I was physically unable to take care of myself should the need arise.
Yes.
Do those thoughts go through your mind?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, that actually is very resonant with what I said about hoping to not outlive my ability to care for myself. Yeah,
And you don't just mean that physically either.
physically and mentally, and we were speaking earlier that they work together.
Yep.
Yeah, I think it's physical, mental issues are both involved in my assessment that I don't want to outlive my ability to take care of myself. Yeah, I don't know what the chances are. I am older now than my father ever lived to be.
Okay.
I worked it out on the calendar, and I remembered I had a specific date where that was the day he, at his age, died, and it felt freaky to me to live through that day and to move past it. And also, the average life expectancy for African American men born the year I was born is 58 years.
58
I'm way past that.
And-
Isn't that something?
And
58
also,
years.
In addition, people with severe and perpetual mental illness die on average 20 to 25 years younger.
Younger, absolutely. Yeah.
So this is amazing in and of itself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm ready to go.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm ready to go, and I don't mean that at all in a morbid sense.
So you don't think that your depression's speaking a little bit when you say that?
I think the depression factors into it, yeah, but I don't feel that that's all that's involved in that. Yeah, I have a spiritual belief that when I leave here, I go to a better place and a higher place, and that I continue to move up, and there's a strong part of me that's looking forward to that. So when I think of dying, I don't feel morbid about it.
Okay, at peace with that.
Yeah. So-
We'll definitely get back to you. Michael.
Okay, all
Thank
right.
you.
Yeah, thanks, Matthew.
LK, same question. You're not, you're more mature now, and at some point, you'll probably need some help. Are there fears that you have? And please let viewers know what your barriers are so we can be really clear and I can talk more about that. I mean, being trans is a big one. And you and I did speak a little bit about the fact that at the moment, you don't really have passing privilege all the time.
Right.
And what would that be like? I'm just gonna throw out a hypothetical here. Say you're in need of assisted living and you don't have passing privilege and you know you're a guy. Are there any fears about that coming up for you?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, as someone who was butch, that created problems too, including within the lesbian community, who were like, you know, "Well, you're too butch." I don't know what that means, but I'm just myself.
Yes.
But I would like to say that at the current time, I do have a partner who is amazing and who would look out for my best interests.
Wonderful.
And that is huge,
Yeah.
because not everybody can say that.
That's true.
Fantastic.
And she would advocate for me to the death. So I feel very lucky in that manner. But yeah, I worry about those things, not being able to take care of myself. What if she dies before I do?
Exactly. Yeah.
And I'm a very physically strong person and very capable and very self-sufficient and pretty healthy. So although I don't think of those things all the time, they do come into my mind, and I think, oh, gosh, if I get older, what if this happens? What if that happens? What's going to happen?
Have you made any plans? Any
I really hate to
arrangements
say
ahead
that.
of time?
No. I should have a living will.
Yes.
I
all
know, and listen, I know all this stuff in my head, yet I still don't do it.
Yeah.
Okay. What prevents you from doing that, LK?
Probably denial.
Okay.
But it's not going to happen.
Well, I hate to tell you.
It's not just a river in Egypt.
Right. So what provisions, though, even though you may not have made them, what provisions would you like to make?
Well, I would like to have a living will that explicitly gives my partner, Carolyn, carte blanche. You know, she will have all the privileges and all the say in what happens if I get sick. I mean, we've had conversations. So I'm like, look, if I'm on life support and I need it and I'm going to die if I'm not on it, pull the plug. And she has said the same thing to me. I'm like, no, I don't want to take up space like that. But I also would like to be acknowledged as trans.
Well, how do you think that might play out? Have you been in nursing homes or any familiarity with that sort of thing?
I've been to some nursing homes.
Okay.
Not a lot, not extensively. I worked in a hospital at a young age.
Okay.
But I know that they're understaffed. And even just regular basic care sometimes goes by the wayside. Not to mention the fact that now you're dealing with somebody who is transgender, or whether it's gay or lesbian, gender queer, whatever that is, whatever your identity is, or your orientation, which are different. Not a lot of people know that. It's already a struggle. It's already a stressed system, you know. And you were mentioning climate too. The political climate right now scares the hell out of me.
Oh, yeah.
Talk a bit about it. Go ahead.
You know, we've made all these gains. Yes, you can, a right to marry and free from discrimination.
right.
Blah, blah, but that doesn't mean it doesn't happen. People find more subtle ways to express that.
That are not so subtle. Yeah.
Yeah. And I believe, my opinion only, Donald Trump is breeding a culture of hate and fear and ignorance. And it scares me of what could happen to me. I could meet my demise. I might not have to age because I might not get there.
I know I'll be alarming to some of our viewers, but 1 in 10 trans folks will die by being beaten to death.
Right.
That is, I think about that often.
Wow.
I think okay of myself. I worked in assisted living, I'd say, think about 8 years total. And in one assisted living, it was basically for poor folks.
Right.
And I felt like they were kind of like cattle, 2 to a room, minimal care on a good day. And thoughts that go through my mind are, I don't feel like being on display.
Right.
As a freak. I don't feel like, I don't mean this in any disrespectful way, because certainly there are just tremendous CNAs out there, but they're not very educated as a rule. And sometimes, like you said, even in the good places, not so much. And my fear is similar to Michael's in some way, like what if I do not have my complete wits about me?
Right.
or even maybe worse, having my wits and being physically unable to advocate for myself, or be at the mercy of people that sometimes these behaviors are ignorant, but even as we know, ignorance breeds really bad behavior.
Yes.
And I don't like being the victim of that. So I have a number of fears, and so that's why I wanted to do this. So I don't know, I think I just went a little bit on a tangent here, I'm sorry.
CNAs are what? I'm sorry.
CNAs are certified nursing assistants.
I see.
And I really want to emphasize that many are just top-notch
Yeah.
and truly care about the folks they're working for. And yet there's certainly a significant amount that are not, or even very good people who are seriously overworked.
Yes.
And I don't think I'm even addressing that. I think I'm addressing, to be honest, just the abuses that can take place when you are so vulnerable, and because you're a person of color or mental illness or trans, that it makes us even more vulnerable.
Yep.
And that scares me. And so that's partly why I want to do that. So I'm just curious that, that was some of your fears, so.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah,
Without a
yeah.
doubt.
And I too know I need to be doing something.
Right.
Living wills, like for example, for me, I am medically transitioned. And the thought that someone wouldn't be giving my tea reliably fries my fanny, it hasn't even happened yet.
Right.
But there are things I could put in place to maybe ensure some of that, so.
Yeah, and like I said, thankfully I have a really tremendously supportive partner.
That's
Who,
wonderful.
if something did happen to me and she were still alive, she would fight tooth and nail for my
Fantastic.
rights.
Well, then maybe after this program, you'll zip home and start doing some of the things to get those things set up for yourself.
Absolutely.
Good. Antoinette, you're not a young man, but I see you biking everywhere. I
Oh,
know
yes.
you're at the Y. Do you have any fears for taking care of yourself?
Well, I think it'd be foolish to say that you don't have fears, even if you are taking care. I have learned over the years, because I grew up in pretty deep poverty. My mom and dad rarely used doctors. I went to a doctor occasionally for pneumonia or something like that, or maybe if I had a bad cut that needed to be sewed or treated. But most of my life, up until I was in the service, growing up, I didn't have yearly medical checkups and everything. And I've reached a point now, I went from about 52 to 52, I started thinking that I needed some get into the medical system, because I needed to get hormones. So I got myself into the medical system, and this last year, I've totally got myself out of the medical system, except for a VA visit once a year.
I was going to ask you that.
Yeah.
Are you a vet? Are you okay?
Yeah,
Okay.
I am a vet, 4 years from 56 to 60. So really, absolutely incredible years. I didn't see combat. It was just one of the high points of my life. I got some education, didn't travel a lot, but a lot of self-confidence, and I kept fit during those years. At 16, I'd had a really bad case of hepatitis A, and I had to drop out of school, and then I had to go back and build myself up. I'm sort of a semi-athlete. I did build myself up. I joined the New York Athletic Club, which is a prestigious athletic club, and I was actually going up to Columbia University and throwing the shot put and the javelin and things like that, running the track to build myself up. And then when I hadn't done this, this wasn't for any goal or anything. It was just to get my health back.
So when you, I know you are you fairly healthy, Antoinette?
Yeah, I have gone through 12, 14 years of severe osteoarthritis. So my legs and my feet, my legs and my spine don't match up. If you see me in the pool, if you would see me with a kickboard, I go backwards instead of forwards.
Okay.
Because the legs and the spine don't match up. The only way I can go forward is to put flippers on. So
do you get your medical care at the VA or local?
yeah, basically, and if I had any really serious problem with breathing or something, or I felt a pain that I thought was really serious and so forth, other than gas or I've learned how to take care of my bowel movements, and I've had some problems with gout, which is urinary. I have an enlarged prostate. So I pretty much, the doctor at the VA prescribes a drug to help the pain and the swelling from the uremic, what gout is uremic poisoning. So I take care of those things. I got my last big uremic poisoning from a doctor's prescription drug from Mercy Hospital. The drug that he gave me terribly crippled me. My right leg was twice the size of my left leg. And I told him that I was allergic to medications. He looked so guilty when I came into the office a year ago in July 4th, just after July 4th weekend. I had to have a friend from church drive me because I was so crippled. So.
Antoinette, have you made any plans?
No, I haven't done the living will kind of thing,
Okay.
and I need to do a will also because I have a few pieces of artwork. My mother was a fine artist, and I have some. So I have some work to do in that line.
Do you have any other arrangements, so if you can't take care of yourself?
Well, my son and my daughter-in-law have both asked me whether I would move, and I think that if it came to, it came to a point where I needed to move nearer them, I could do it. They live in a college town on Ithaca, New York, and it would be a huge leap for me to get out there and find an apartment and live there and so forth. I could do it, but.
Do you get any type of help now in any way?
No. In fact, January, February, March, April, May, I was housing a person who was a trans female who was homeless, sort of made herself homeless by getting out of Waterville. And I took care of her as long as I could stand it because we're both terrible slobs. So I finally told her brother, I said, I can't do this anymore. She's got to go, So her brother talked to her, and the mental difficulties with her were big. I mean, she was schizophrenic, communicated very poorly, had a totally different lifestyle than mine. Took about 16 or 17 different drugs every day. So she was always popping pills, totally addicted to nicotine. She'd smoke and chew the gum. So.
Do you yourself have any mental health issues that you're comfortable sharing? If not, that's fine.
Well, I've reached a point where I don't need to smoke, I don't need to drink, I don't need pot. A problem with all of that is that you have friends that do all of those things.
Yeah.
So you no longer have them in your life.
Yeah.
So it immediately eliminates people that are using something to get by. So, you have to make adjustments. So,
Okay. Well, this is a great transition to launch off, and first off, thank you all for sharing. I think this is great. And now I find that it's really easy in my mind to maybe pick apart and point out the problems, which are significant. And now I'm going to have the arduous task, because one of the things I kind of pride myself on Gender Dignity is offering up some solutions. And so I'm going to ask us to maybe go around and speak about anything structurally that we think might be useful, and just even to give some idea. I will start us off with my own idea of a solution. One thing I know, we were talking about sort of co-housing.
Yes.
One solution I know that's actually becoming quite popular in Maine is for folks to pool their resources together, buy a big home, and sort of look after each other. I think that sounds like a great idea for community, and I like the idea myself, and they'll pool in maybe to have someone coming in to do some of the housekeeping, and that way someone's always coming in to maybe just check and Obviously, if there's a house full of, 6 to 10 of you, I think easier to look after each other than a big old, assisted living facility. So I do just realize though that we have about 10 minutes. So if we could maybe just 2 minutes apiece, offer an idea of a solution to some of the issues we have brought up. And I'm sorry, Mike, I'm putting you on the spot. You'll start us off.
That's fine. The first thing that comes to my mind is an abstract concept. I would like to do everything I can to help us become a more kinder and gentler nation. Not only, to age in, but for everyone.
Sure.
I don't remember what the circumstances were. The first President Bush said something in a speech once about America being a kinder, gentler place, and I like that language. I wasn't certain how I felt about it coming from him. Also, along the line of the co-housing idea, I wish I had more specific information for what I'm about to say. There is a development called the greenhouse movement. Are you familiar with
Yes,
the
I am.
greenhouse?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, it's supposed to be, excuse me, an alternative to traditional nursing homes. I think they do have about 6 people in a home.
Okay.
Each person has his or her private room, private bath, and then they share kitchen facilities, living room facilities. They eat together, they dine together. Community.
Yeah.
And it's supposed to be much more human, for lack of a better word, but maybe that is the precise word than what we see in many nursing homes. Yeah, I don't know that we have a greenhouse facility here in Maine.
Yes, we do.
Do we?
The YMCA across it had built a wonderful greenhouse.
Okay.
And I've heard that it's a fantastic place.
Right in town?
Yeah, right in
Okay.
town. Yeah.
I'm
yeah.
gonna have to look into that. Yeah.
Thank you, Mike.
Yes,
And since we
yeah.
don't have a lot of time for each of us, I want to jump up. I know another thing, I'm just going to throw it out because I heard cruises are becoming kind of a retirement alternative to assisted living as well. Because they
That's
offer
interesting.
medical,
Yeah.
entertainment,
Yeah.
community, and apparently they're significantly cheaper than paying for assisted living.
Isn't that remarkable?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know one thing, and I'm sorry because I am chatting, but a lot of people do want to live independently on their own, and my only problem with that is the isolation. And that's what scares me. And even if you have a wonderful person coming in, I almost think it's difficult for them too, because it's isolating for them to just maybe hang out with the same person, hours a day, every day. And that, to me, that's not really healthy in some ways.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm not going to keep talking. LK, do you have some thoughts of some solutions?
Yeah, I like the idea of co-housing, or even I don't know if you've heard of the buying land trust at a significant.
Talk about it. Yeah, I don't know about it.
I don't know a whole lot about it
Okay.
either, but somebody was telling me that even just people getting together and getting land trust housing, which is significantly cheaper, and they give you more financing for
Okay.
folks who may not have the financial resources
Right.
available to them to go into a co-housing situation,
Okay.
or they have bad credit, or
Sure, and
and
credit
a
is,
number
we
of
could-
things.
yeah,
could-
we could do that.
Mine is horrible.
Yeah.
But that, and I also think starting to do more education and having facilities that have units, GLBT units.
Oh, right, maybe specific.
Very good,
Yeah,
very
assisted
good.
living specific to
Yeah.
LGBT.
And so
Yeah.
people who would go into that would have,
Sure.
training and awareness
Yep,
on LGBTQI issues.
yep, yep.
I think that would
That's
be,
a terrific idea.
But I also agree with Michael on, there's,
The kinder, gentler.
a kinder, gentler.
Yeah,
gentler
please,
nation.
yes. We all need to work
You
toward
know,
that, I
hey,
believe.
I'm currently working on a kindness curriculum that I want to incorporate into the school system.
Oh, I love it.
Starting them out when they're young.
I think
so that
all
they
the
learn
youngins
that.
should be doing yoga, practicing pause and being curious. So we're gonna
Absolutely.
go to Antoinette. Antoinette, do you have any ideas of what structurally could be helpful?
Well, I know a lot of us have I've had experience as a PCA with several friends that had terminal illnesses. One was a woman that was had emphysema, and I worked with her for about, actually when I was coming out, she used to let me dress in her apartment to go out to the gay bars. And so she was a really wonderful woman. She finally was killed by doctor's meds because they weren't checking her blood levels.
Oh, boy.
And then I worked with a man with Parkinson's who made an amazing run in his life. He lived 18 years with Parkinson's. So I think there are some role models out there for help of LGBT people. But I think that getting it actually physically together is going to require some grant writing. And people, I've had some experience grant writing because I've done some nonprofit organizing. So I would suggest, going in that area, finding people that are capable to sit down and do grant writing to get a piece of property, and also going through religious institutions. I haven't said anything about my faith life, but I started out as a Catholic worker, Christian. I actually wasn't even a baptized Christian at the time when I got out of the service. I went through Dorothy Day's group, and she influenced me heavily. And that kind of a role model we could repeat places, church institutions doing things for people.
So I want to thank the viewers for watching this evening. I think that we have touched on a lot of issues, and I think we've offered up some solutions. And hopefully there's some viewers out there, as Antoinette suggested, maybe get on with some grant writing to maybe think about what LK was suggesting, LGBT assisted living. That's a thought. I hadn't thought of that, if you're watching this program, obviously you care, so you're kind of getting some of that awareness. And just keep in mind that the LGBT community really does have some additional barriers that go beyond just aging, and we know that that's hard enough in and of itself. So I thank you so much for watching Gender Dignity, Unique and Equal. I thank my guests for your bravery, your courage, and your honesty.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Everyone have a good night and see you next month.